Excuse me for my voice, I'm feeling a little bit sick today. But one thing I told myself when I started doing D&D content was that I was not going to be one of those channels that just read from D&D horror stories or RPG horror stories or anything like that and gave my opinion on them. At least not like fully, like I didn't want to be like that was all my content was. Not that I don't like that kind of content, I do. But I love leaning more toward advice and storytelling and, you know, kind of just giving as much as I can to stuff that I don't see all the time. But of course I wasn't going to avoid it forever. Now, originally somebody had sent me this tweet, and I'm not going to show who posted the tweet or anything, but somebody sent me this tweet of a screen cap from D&D horror stories. It says, my DM laid out the 44 rules of D&D. And so they're basically posting this as like, oh, you know, look how weird my DM is and things like that. And I haven't read any of the rules yet. In fact, I wanted to read all 44 of them because the screen cap only goes from 1 to 16. But I went to try to find the original post and it has been deleted. It took me a long time to dig it up. I had to search the user and go to their page and everything. But yeah, the original post has been deleted within the first 24 hours. I'm guessing it wasn't received very well. So I'm interested to see what exactly crops up here and what could have caused them to delete their post. So let's check it out.
Riser, double.
I take how much damage?
Apparently, the DM for this person's group posted in the group chat or on Reddit or on the Facebook or Discord, whatever, says, I'll just put shit out now that's going to change before anyone goes through with anything. This is apparently posted after a hiatus. Their game was put on hiatus by the Dungeon Master, and apparently this was what the Dungeon Master wanted. Number 1, I'm timing turns. I don't give a fuck if it's unfair in your opinion because your spells are hard and you don't know what square to move to. You get 1 minute to know all the actions you want to take, or I skip your turn. So off the bat, immediately, I don't like this presentation. It's kind of rude, and I say that as somebody who's a little bit of a hard ass sometimes, because you have to be firm with people. When you're one thing, I'm gonna make a video on this probably down the road, but when you're a dungeon master, you can't be like, guys, please, I really don't want you. You have to be like, you have to be very firm. You have to be very like, no, this is how we're doing it, because if you give players an inch, they'll take a mile. And that's not like to say like players are bad people inherently. It's just that's how people are in general. So you do have to be pretty firm whenever you're doing these kind of things. But that being said, I will say that the attitude here is wrong, but it's a fair thing. 1 minute is a little bit short, but I usually give my players like 2 or 3 minutes to do their turns. I don't have like a timer going, right? Like I don't pull up my phone and fucking start making a timer or whatever and be like, this is how how long we got left. No, I'll just like, I'll get to their turn and then I'll give them a little bit to think. And then I'll be like, okay, man, you need to wrap it up or we're going to have to skip your turn. And this is just for the flow of the session. You are there's 5 people at the table, right? 4 people if you don't include the DM. All of us want to get things done, and it's just not fair to the rest of the players that you want to take, you know, 10-15 minutes to figure out what the fuck to do on your turn. The way that I teach people to play the game is you should always be in attention and know what you're going to want to do before it gets to you. So if you've got certain like spells and shit like that, you know, look them up while somebody else is taking their turn, you know. So yeah, I get wanting to time people. I just don't really like the way that he's presenting this. Number 2 says, if you want harder fights, bring a second character sheet and expect to twiddle your thumbs when you die. I'm not going to baby anyone. Again, this is, I think I'm starting to see why this is posted in horror stories, and it's not because the points are necessarily unfair, but it's because this guy sounds like he's kind of an asshole. My best guess is that before the hiatus, some of the players might have been complaining about having like too easy of encounters, which can oftentimes be a complaint. It really does not feel fun when you and your party are steamrolling every encounter, but at the end of the day too, it's something that this feels like something that you should be like talking to your players about, not posting an aggressive list on like, hey guys, you know, I know you guys haven't been excited with the combat, you know, let's sit down and talk about some stuff that we can do. One of the big things about Dungeons and Dragons is that it is all about the fun of both the DM and the players. If people aren't having fun, then that is the only time you're playing Dungeons and Dragons wrong. And so if your players aren't having fun because the fights feel too easy, then, you know, maybe you gotta like, you do gotta bump the difficulty up a little bit. Something my old DM, the person that taught me to DM, something they said was, if your players are ever like, wow, that's easy, or wow, that's easy, or they defeat something like too quickly or whatever, you have like a little dial, and that dial starts at like 3, right? Like, oh, you know, a little bit challenging, but not that bad. And then every time they say something's too easy, you just crank that dial up a little bit. You don't like actively go, fuck you guys, me, right? Like, you just sound like a child. Number 3, if you call me or my rolls unfair, I'll get up and go home. And if you got a ride with me, you can find your own way back and suck it up. That is wild. This sounds like a person that is at their wit's end. I would love to know, like, obviously, like, don't act like this guy, like, ever, right? But I would love to know if possibly maybe this group is like assholes, because like I feel like this isn't the result of one person going, oh, that was unfair or something like that, right? Like, I feel like this is the result of like multiple people like completely and utterly being a dickhead. You know what I mean? Like, this is multiple people just like over and over again, like pushing this guy's buttons. Again, I'm not justifying this behavior. I'm not justifying the way he's putting stuff, but like this feels like every single session he was probably getting told things were unfair because of how shit was turning out. And sometimes, guys, that's just how it goes. Number 4 says, I'm going to take your character's loot away as regularly as you want it given out. Rule 3 will apply here. I would love context for this situation. What the fuck does that mean, you're going to take it away? Like, you're just going to fucking reach the divine hand of some random god you picked out of the Pantheon, and they're just going to be like, oh, I'll take that +2 sword. Like, what? Like, what do you mean take it away? This feels like punishment for players just wanting to have more cool stuff. And there's a way that you can go about it, right? If your players are desperately every session, I would love to find a magic item, I want more magic items, you know, stuff like that. Start handing them cursed shit. The DMG's got plenty of cursed shit in it, bro. Just start handing them cursed shit. They'll stop asking for like a shitload of magic items every single game real fucking quick. Real fucking quick, you know? Number 5, if you don't act out any of your persuasion or intimidation or any other social checks, you fail before you even roll. You fail immediately because you aren't even trying to make the game, because you aren't even trying and you're making the game lame for everyone else. I had to reread that. Holy shit, dyslexia go brr. I don't know, man. This one's kind of weird. Like I understand, like I'm also one of those people that like I prefer players that get deep into role play and deep into what their character is doing, because I get deep into the game. I find the game most fun when it's not just somebody sitting there going, yeah, I roll persuasion 10. Do I persuade them? Like I would rather you be like, you know, I want to persuade him by telling him that we met his daughter on the way over here and she said he can help us. And it's like, okay, cool, roll persuasion, you know, if they actually met the daughter or something like that, right? And then if they're lie, you know, okay, we'll roll deception, right? Like, I want to know what you're saying. You know, you don't have to give me a fucking, you don't have to give me Oscar-winning performances, man. But like, just come on, man, get a little bit into it. I feel like if you're gonna play the role-playing game, we should do some motherfucking role-playing. You know what I mean? But again, this is very like very aggressive, very over the top. Like, this guy's taking shit way too fucking far, man. Way too far. Number 6, if you don't pick up cues for side quests, that's not my problem. Get over yourself. It's not a video game. It's a role-playing pen and paper based game with miniatures. I'm not holding you hand if you choose not to pursue shit. Again, fair point. Just why is this guy like he's so angry, man? He's like fed up. Like, I feel like at this point, this is a person who has been just from the way most of these are phrased, I feel like this is a person who is tired of bad player behaviors and people bitching all the time. And he just, instead of like nipping it in the bud when it was happening, he let it all fester. Right, he was constantly being handed some cinder blocks, and he was like going down, and instead of him saying, "Hey, stop handing me cinder blocks," at like any point, he waited until they placed the cinder block that broke his back, and then he just fucking lost his mind. You know what I mean? Like this guy, again, I'm not saying this behavior is okay or that it's excusable or anything, but it really does sound like this is a group of players that are really fucking annoying to deal with. And he wanted to address it, but instead of addressing it in an adult kind of manner and actually talking to his players, he just went off the goddamn deep end. And the fact that they took a hiatus before this means that, you know, if you say hiatus, I'm gonna guess like at least a week break, because most people play Dungeons and Dragons once a week. Although one time I was running like 4 campaigns at one time. But anyway, I feel like most people, you know, if you say hiatus, I'm gonna imagine it was at least a week break, like you missed at least 1 session for a break, which means that this guy let this shit fester for at least a week before posting this, which means that he didn't take the time to calm the fuck down at all. Number 7, if you move to a square in combat, there's no takebacks. Yeah, this is a guy who's just fed up, man. This is a guy who's just fed up with what people are saying and how people are saying it, and he is not happy with any of it, man. Also, like, yeah, this means that they were constantly being like, okay, I'm gonna move over here. No, I don't want to do that. I run by the rule of, if you let go of your token, then you forfeit that move. That is my own personal homebrew rule. If you move your token forward and then you let go, then that's it. You've locked in that move. But if you move it forward and then you move it back really quickly, then I'm not like too much of a stickler. But yeah, that's how I do it. 8, you tell every single person what you're doing before you do it. You don't fucking roll dice and then say you're casting fireball. You tell us all. You don't need to tell every single person. You just need to tell me. But yeah, that's pretty much the standard. I had a group one time, very frustratingly, they would just roll for like everything. Like I wouldn't give them any input or anything. They would just roll to roll. They would roll to influence their decisions. They would roll to influence the decisions against the NPCs. They'd roll to influence decisions against each other. They like 2 characters would have a conversation about what they were supposed to be doing, like a plan of attack or whatever. And then one character would disagree, and a player would go, I rolled to convince him. What the fuck do you mean you rolled to convince? No, we're not doing that. So the realistic thing is, you only need to be telling me what you're doing. You don't have to tell every single person. And yeah, you need to do it before you roll the dice so that we understand what's going on. But again, dude, holy crap, this is just so fucking aggressive, man. This guy is mad. This is a mad fucking person, dude. I'm telling you, like, this is like the whole time this guy was typing this out, he was like shaking and like fucking like seething, dude. Like this, I don't know, man. You need to do some breathing exercises, roll a joint, fucking play some relaxing video games, man. Like, take it from somebody who has anger issues. Like, I've dealt with anger issues my whole life, man. This is just crazy, dog. Number 9, I will give out exhaustion more frequently. What? If you argue, go home and you can actually fight me over it. Or what? Or you can DM yourself. Dude, that is wild. This dude is crazy. You can actually fight me. We're not throwing hands over Dungeons and Dragons, man. That is wild. And this is so weird. I will give out exhaustion more frequently. So for those of you who don't know, exhaustion is a status effect that is very deadly. And when I say deadly, I mean literally deadly. Like, if you get 6 levels of exhaustion, you straight up die. Exhaustion is a very powerful debuff that happens to players or characters when they haven't rested for X amount of days and they haven't eaten or drinking or things like that. Basically, what happens to you in real life is if you haven't eaten, drinking, or slept for a long while, then exhaustion kicks in because your body needs those things, and that is a thing in Dungeons and Dragons. And again, if you reach 6 levels of exhaustion, you outright fucking die. So to just be like, yeah, no, I'll just start handing out exhaustion. Why? What do you mean? What are you fucking talking about? Like, are you handing out exhaustion for the reasons exhaustion happens? Or are you just saying like, yeah, you're exhausted now after that fireball? That took a lot out of you. No, dude, what the fuck? This is a very bitter DM, dude. Number 10, every snide comment you make to an NPC will be remembered and paid back triplicate. You all seem to believe there is little consequence. So, wow, this is what I would love to have been a fly on the wall for the sessions that led up to this post. Cause like some of these are like very reasonable, but then like we're starting to get into like some very bitter territory. So it is important as a dungeon master that some of your NPCs are powerful, like secretly powerful characters, because if you don't do that, then murder hobos will fuck your game up. And so it's definitely something to keep in mind when you are making NPCs. But being like, oh, you snickered at my shop owner when he said that he's selling this for 100 gold. Oh, well, now he's gonna punch you in the face. That's so weird, man. That's so weird, dude. Number 11, you will not be given a mega dungeon every session. A temple is not the size of a small city, neither is a cave. This shit will happen when it's natural and organic. Go play some roguelike if you want that. Yeah, I keep saying this, man, but this is just a guy who's fed up. This guy is fed up. Yeah, if you want to play, here's the thing. I watched this very good video by the Pointy Hat a couple days ago, and it was about it was basically about, you know, being a better dungeon master. And one of the things that he said was choosing your players. Some players want a dungeon crawler campaign. Some players want a heavy role-playing campaign. Some players want a healthy mix of both. Some players want, you know what I mean? Like a whole bunch of other stuff. And I said this in my second video, I think, my 5 new tips for DMs. Sometimes DMs and players aren't compatible. Sometimes what players want and what DMs want is not the same, and you can either adjust yourself as the dungeon master, which I don't recommend, or you could just separate yourself, and I do recommend that. Sometimes you're not going to be able to play with your friends because not everybody wants the same things out of the game. So this is a fair point, but like this seems like something that should have been taken care of in session 0, like the expectations of the campaign. Number 12, the travel portion is done. You want to travel continents doing literally whatever you want, whenever you want. Go play World of Warcraft or play DND with ChatGPT. Oh my God. So you don't want to give them big dungeons to explore, but you also don't want them to travel? What do you want them to do? This is moving outside the realm of bitterness and kind of understanding into the realm of being a weirdo. Like, you want them to just stay in the same couple of cities and that's it, or the same city and a couple of villages and that's it. Like, dude, like I said, man, I would love to pick this user's brain and be like, dude, what happened up till this point in the session? Number 13, if you're late with no good reason, I'm going to have your character's hit points. I need a minute. Half? This man said half your character's hit points. He said half? He said half your... That is wild. Okay, so there is a problem with players treating Dungeons and Dragons like it is not a commitment. And I know that sounds incredibly cringy, but here's the thing. Dungeons and Dragons is a commitment. You are trying to wrangle 5 grown people into the same place at the same time every single week. And the reason that is because everybody needs to be present to play the game. I understand frustrations with people being late all the time. I will not play with those people. If you are super late to the session, you know, if you're 10 minutes late, it's whatever, right? But if you're like, oh guys, I'm not going to be there for an hour, then we're just going to start the session and you're just going to miss out on stuff that happened. You're going to have to get it from somebody else, because one thing that kills D&D sessions is people who are constantly late or people who are constantly never there. You know, everybody has obligations in their lives, but Dungeons and Dragons needs to become one of those things, right? Just like before you would play a campaign, you would prioritize an hour or two to play video games or take your dog for a walk or go to the gym or whatever the case may be. Dungeons and Dragons becomes one of those priorities. They become one of those things that you do in your free time, and you need to make free time to do it, because if you're not committed to the game, then the campaign will fail, or we're just going to lose a player, right? So when we set an expectation as a group for people to be there, then we want you to be there. Having people's hit points is not the solution to that. The solution to that is to have a grown adult conversation about the fact that you do not want people showing up late. And again, this is an expectation that needs to happen in session 0. I think my next video is going to be on the importance of session 0 and what needs to happen during those sessions. Number 14, if you don't show up for no good reason, and that will be determined by me alone if no one else has the guts to say shit for fear of upsetting one another. The first time you'll find yourself losing either a whole level or up to 3 major items on your own. The second time you do it in a row, you'll be removed from the chat and the group, full stop. I have no fucking time for people to not show up. Again, you're trying to enact punishments on people instead of talking to them like grown adults, and that's the problem here. The problem is not the frustration with people straight up not showing up. The problem is that you are trying to punish people as if they were children. You need to have conversations with people about your expectations, and if your expectations are show up for sessions, that's valid. But like this whole like trying to punish people like they're kindergartners shit is just immature on your part and shows that you probably don't have the emotional maturity to be a dungeon master, and that's a problem. Number 15, if you get too stoned or drunk to play, I will go home without a warning. Your warning is here. You know what? This is like the one time that I'm gonna say like mostly valid. I would honestly send the player home instead of me going home, but I don't know the situation in what they're doing. But trying to argue with players on why something should happen is hard. Trying to argue with drunk players is nigh impossible. People who are drunk or stoned during a DVD session do not act in a way that is what's the word I'm looking for? Digestible? That's not it. Basically, playing with drunk and high people is not fun. It's really not. One of my groups that I had, we had somebody who was drunk every single session for like probably about 5 or 6 sessions in a row, and every single one of those sessions, it was ridiculous. It was a ridiculous fucking time. We had to explain shit to him 76 fucking times about why something was happening. I remember we were watching an execution of some NPCs, and for I don't know why, the party decided they wanted to save the NPCs, and the only one who physically went up to the gallows was the Warforged, the drunk player. And so he ended up with a 1,500 gold bounty on his head for abating criminals, and he was the only one because he was the only one seen. Everybody else used magic, and used magic from the sidelines and quietly. And so he was trying to figure out why he's the only one with a 1,500 gold bounty on his head. And so we were trying to explain to him that he was told by the wizard and the sorcerer not to fucking move. And he did it any goddamn way. And so that's why he ended. And then he just like over and over repeatedly, oh no, why do I got a 1,500 gold bounty on my head? Like, this is bullshit. I don't understand why I got a 1,500 gold. And so, I'm going to assume that stoned players are very similar. It's frustrating. Nobody wants to deal with that shit, so I won't play with people who are drunk or stoned. Another time I had a player who was drunk in one of my last campaigns, my actual last campaign I ever ran. I had a player show up drunk the first night, and I didn't realize they were drunk until much later into that session, but they kept interrupting me. Like every time I was trying to describe something, they would interrupt me, and this is a player that normally didn't do that. right? Like, we're not talking about personalities. We're talking about complete and utter tonal shifts. This is a player that was one of my close friends, and he always let me finish. He always let me explain what was going on. He wouldn't interrupt me constantly. He wouldn't start singing songs out of nowhere. You know, he would actively be present. And so, yeah, no drinking or being stoned at the D&D table. If all of you want to do that together, that's of course up to your group, but it's pretty solid. And the last one on this screen cap, number 16, says, if you get up for a bong or smoke or whatever breaks every 10 minutes, I will simply pack up and go home. I'm sick of waiting for every bloke to be at the table. That's also fair. One thing that is common in the D&D community is people getting tired of people playing on their phones and not paying attention and having to get up and take phone calls and getting up to go smoke and all of this stuff. Like, we're here to play the game. Can we please play the fucking game? Like, I get it if the session runs like over, say, 3 hours or something. Like, if you're going to be going into like the 4-6 hour session, which is a pretty healthy session length, and I really enjoy doing those, then yeah, you should definitely look into a small break, but like getting one every 10 minutes. I'm assuming this is probably a little bit exaggerated, but yeah, getting breaks like too often is definitely not the play, at least in my opinion. So that's all the ones in the screen cap. Like I said, I truly think that this dungeon master is like, it sounds like this is a dungeon master who is just fed up with the shenanigans of the players. It sounds to me like players are constantly complaining, constantly being late, constantly walking away from the table, constantly like just a constant lack of commitment seems to be happening. The thing I don't like is that he's very bitter. He's the tone of the way he's approaching this is not how you approach things. It's very confrontational. It's very angry. And, that is frustrating, right? That is frustrating. I get that. But you can't approach these situations like this. If everything is this bad, then you just have to walk away as the dungeon master and find a new group. And as somebody who's been looking for a new group for 2 years, I get it. It's hard to find, but what are you going to do, right? So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Like I said, I'm not going to do this D&D horror story, give my opinion type of thing all the time, but it is inevitable when you're a D&D creator. So I expect to see some of these videos from me, but not that often. But other than that, I hope you guys have a fantastic day. I hope your dice roll high. I love you all so much, and I will see you in the next one.